The Missing Child, Appalachian Range. The first page is smeared in places, as if someone gripped the paper with wet hands. Each letter is blurred by time, yet every word aches with urgency. The forest outside Morganton never gives up its secrets willingly. Excerpt from Initial Report, October 13th, 1994. Subject: Jamie E., age 8. Last seen: 4:07 p.m., yellow rain jacket, walking on Old Trestle Road, half a mile from the family property. Conditions: fog rolling in, temperature dropping fast. Testimony collected from mother, Audrey E. He'd gone after our old retriever, that's all. We called, but the mist was thick that night, so thick you couldn't see the creek. First, we heard him giggle. Then it sounded like someone else was laughing farther up the hill. Description from Search and Rescue. Found the dog circling one of the old chimneys, what's left of that burned house. No footprints. No sign of Jamie, just his flashlight on the stone step. It was still warm to the touch. A series of children's drawings were found in Jamie's room. Crayon on rough paper. A row of black trees. Something enormous crouched behind them, with too many arms. A small figure in a yellow jacket, always facing away, standing at the edge of darkness that looks like a mouth. Circles, always circles, drawn over and over, pressed so hard the crayon snapped. The mother reported that Jamie had been talking to the lady in the trees, an imaginary friend, she assumed. But after the disappearance, neighbors whispered of a banshee that lived in the roots of the oldest pines, pulling children into the shadows to keep them safe from something worse. The woods swallowed sound. Search teams set out at dawn, flashlight beams slicing through fog so thick it felt solid, muffling every cry of Jamie's name. Boots churned leaves slick with the residue of last night's rain. Dogs barked once, then cowered, tails tucked, refusing to enter the denser thicket. The further they walked, the quieter things became. No birds, only the shifting hush of branches overhead. On the third sweep, a deputy found small handprints pressed into patches of moss on an ancient sycamore. The prints radiated outward from a central point, forming a rough spiral. No trail led away. On the edge of a stream, they discovered something stranger. Circles etched into the clay along the bank, spiraling deeper than a child's fingers could reach. The soil inside each circle was dry, as if untouched by the fog or the creek's icy current. Day 2, a searcher's radio fizzed with static, then a child's giggle cut through the interference, distant, out of place, never repeated. The mist thickened by noon. The woods felt rearranged, landmarks twisting out of memory. A fallen log split in two, bark peeled back revealing thin scraps of fabric yellowed by moisture. A volunteer stumbled upon a charm tied to the branch of a dying laurel, a crude figure woven from roots. And faded thread, marked by symbols known only to those who'd grown up fearing the pines. Beneath the figure, a shallow pit concealed a collection of Jamie's favorite marbles, laid in careful order. At dusk, the temperature dropped. Every breath smoked in the fading light. The last team turned back before nightfall, compelled by the sense that something moved behind them, pacing, never quite appearing on the periphery. Testimony added to the file. A voice called our names, each one in perfect imitation. But when we answered, it never replied. The woods felt hollow, as if something hungry waited just below the roots. Lookouts reported seeing the yellow jacket, but only ever as a flicker vanishing between trees, always slipping farther uphill, deeper into the old growth. Night fell swift and unnatural the third evening. The searchers left out past dusk reported a biting chill, as if the woods themselves exhaled ice. Headlamps barely cut the darkness. One by one, the batteries flickered and died, plunging them into near pitch black. Then, the air thickened. A pale light, neither moon nor torch, seemed to seep from the forest floor, revealing movement in the fog. An outline, child-sized, but wrong in its proportions, limbs elongated and shifting as if tangled in unseen strings. The figure paused beside the circles etched in the mud, head cocked, one hand raised. The yellow of Jamie's jacket glimmered like a warning, sullied and wet. A woman's voice rose softly from nowhere and everywhere, singing in a hush too old to be human. The searchers tried to call to Jamie. The figure turned, not a child's face, but a mask of bark and moss, those empty eyes gleaming with mournful hunger. The marbles in its hand clicked, one by one, as if counting out years. The air mutated. Every team member felt breath on their neck, cold and steady, and saw the shape of their own fear mapped in drifting mist. Roots crawled from the earth, encircling boots and ankles, holding them just long enough to make every heart pound. The woman's lullaby faded into whispers that pulled at memory, old warnings not to walk at night, not to answer when the forest calls your name. One last flicker, a flash of gold, then nothing. The mist swallowed the figure. Radios resumed static, but never again that giggle. Field note, found days later, pinned to a tree. If you read this, turn back after dusk. Some roots are hungrier than the dirt that feeds them. Not every voice in the woods is lost. The days that followed were marked by silence. The search was called off after a week. No trace found except for the marbles, carefully laid out on a stump at the forest's edge, newly polished by rain. Parents locked their doors before sunset. Old warnings were whispered again at porch rails. Don't answer the voices after dark. Jamie's room was left undisturbed. Every night, the family claimed to hear footsteps in the upstairs hallway, always pausing outside his door, fading with the dawn. The dog refused to enter the house, staring out the window, hackles raised at shadows no one else could see. On the anniversary of Jamie's disappearance, the woods returned a single item, a scrap of yellow cloth nailed to a laurel with roots grown through its weave. It smelled of damp moss and memories too heavy to bear. Every year after, the circles appeared, traced in the banks of the creek, mud left untouched beside them. Forensic records sealed. Local legends revived. The forest remains unyielding. Lost is not always gone. Sometimes it's woven into the roots and remembered by things that were here before us. If you walk this land at dusk, step lightly. The woods know your name.